Hi, every new year ushers in the Markstrat season. Spread over multiple programs and multiple batches, I would have taught Markstrat for 300 hours and for over 1,000 students. Markstrat typically is taught between January and March, that is Pongal to Holi. But this year, thanks to COVID, Markstrat has got pushed by about 60 days as all other academic calendars, and we are starting from March and maybe ending in May. So March has come and here we go. The title for this video is 10 Tips to Win Markstrat. I have divided the 10 tips into two, 5 at an individual tactical level and 5 at a team strategic level. The individual tactical tips are 1. Product design, 2. Product portfolio, 3. Production numbers, 4. Product promotion, and 5. Shifting consumer taste. How do you understand your shifting consumer taste? This has to be taken care of by one player in the team by and large. The team effort ones or the strategic ones are: what is your timing to market? 2. How do you have a balanced approach? 3. How do you trade off between market share and margin, your share margin trade off? 4. How do you keep a close eye on competition? And 5. How this is corely, intrinsically a good, genuine team game. So these are the 10 tips. We will have each of them for about a minute, minute and a half. The entire video, I promise you, might not be more than 20-25 minutes. So here we go. Tip number 1. Product design. The game starts with something called a sonite market. As you know, Markstrat is a hypothetical market and there are two product categories, sonites and bodites. So the well-defined market in which you start the game is called a sonite market, and you will shortly find that the sonite has got 5 clearly defined customer segments or customer clusters, and you have to design products which will suit the requirement for each of these clusters. So as it goes with any product design, you can either go for a minimalistic design, which is also a good design, or a fully loaded design, which is also a good design. The nano level product works for one type of customers. The Ferrari level product works for another type of customers. So how do you decide which is your target market? How do you understand what are the functionalities, what are the conveniences, what are the features that that particular market looks into? How do you do a semantic scale understanding? How do you put in conjoint analysis? All these inputs are available to you. So using all these techniques and tools, how do you create the right product for the right market? Or if I may use a phrase, how do you have the right horse for the right course? That is where you win. There is nothing called a good or a bad product. All products are good as long as they are perfectly aligned at the design level to a particular target market. This is your winning tip number 1. Tip number 2, product portfolio. As I mentioned to you in the first tip, for the sonite market there are clearly well delineated clusters, 5 of them: shoppers, savers, high earners, professionals and explorers. What these people buy, where they buy, at what price point they buy, what is their performance expectation, what is their convenience expectation from the product. All these things are very, very clearly defined. And Markstrat allows you at any given point to have a maximum of 5 products. You would shortly know when you're starting the game that you're allowed to start only with 2 products. So when you're starting the game, the computer already gives you 2 products in sonite. So from these 2, you can build your portfolio up to 5. So 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. So what you do is, your game number 1 would be how to align as much as possible the 2 given products to any of these segments. There are 5 segments and you have to sort of align the existing products which you have to any one of these 2 segments. and then you have the luxury of creating 3 completely new products. You understand the nuances of the segment totally. So your entire design in creating the product portfolio should ensure that you do a perfect fitment of the new product for the new target segment. And once that is done, your complete product portfolio for Sonite gets completely defined. We have not yet talked about the Vodite market. Vodite, if I may, is a blue ocean market, ill-defined market. The category is an unknown category, so we do not know who exactly would be the consumer and what could be his tendency to buy, what would be his requirement nuances is not something which is known a priori. So it's sort of a blind man's buff. So we have to go for the traditional product development lifecycle approach, in which we divide the potential customers into 3. The innovators, who are the early ones in the market, then the early adopters, which is a classic game, and then slowly the followers. So when you're designing something for the Vodite market, which would happen in the 4th, 5th and subsequent rounds, you have the trade-off of, do you start creating only for the innovator and then wait for the next product, or do you start straight away for the early adopter and then it can catch on in the second round and things like that. These are trade-offs which we'll be explaining in subsequent points. But right now what you need to understand is, you need to maintain a perfect product portfolio. Tip number 3, production numbers, or what we call in classic operations as production planning and control. Let me try to give you an advantage that Markstrat will give you, which real markets do not. Markstrat on its own allows a plus or minus 20% correction of your production if the actual market's usage for the subsequent year is mismatched from your calculation. That is, if you are going gung-ho about a calculation, it corrects to a limit of 20% downwards, and if you are pessimistic about your calculation, it corrects 20% upwards. But if your error goes beyond this 20%, God bless. Okay, now let us look at 3 completely different scenarios and how do you understand production planning and control. And we'll try to look at 2 flip sides. One, is there going to be a lost sale or an opportunity loss? And 2, are you going to carry unnecessary inventory? Scenario number 1, your understanding of the market and your understanding of the future demand for this particular product for the ensuing 12 months, the next 1 cycle is reasonably good, and whatever you have predicted after the 20% correction gets into such a way that you neither have a lost sale nor have an inventory, which is a perfect scenario. But that doesn't happen. What could happen most of the times is somebody in the team becomes gung-ho. Let us make. That sort of pitch, you get into a very, very optimistic mode and you tend to overproduce. When you're overproducing, the question of lost sale does not happen at all, because you have tons of production with you, tons of products with you, so every sale is catered to in the market. But at the end of the year, the flip side is you're going to carry inventory. Bad? Obviously, you're going to incur inventory carriage cost. The other side would be a very, very pessimistic approach, a very, very toned down approach. Let me do the minimalistic sort of game and try to make as minimum production as possible. The advantage for that is you will not have any ending inventory. So you can sort of pat yourself on the back that inventory is cleared. But something else is happening. You're going to have something called lost sale. People wanted your product. People know that you're good. They came to you. It was not available. They went to a competitor. So between these 2 scenarios, overproduction and underproduction, one of them is a visible loss. If you're going for overproduction, the flip side is a known flip side. You're going to end up with tons of inventory. But if you're going for underproduction, the flip side is an invisible flip side. You would have lost sales. You would never know about it. Only in subsequent rounds you will know that despite other things being good, your market share is slowly coming down and somebody else's market share is slowly going up. That could happen only because of your underproduction. This is the game of production numbers. Tip number 4, product promotion. Now look at a real market. In a real market, marketing is all about first creating your product or creating the value proposition and then communicating the value proposition. Horlicks becomes great not because the product intrinsically is good, because I know that consumption of Horlicks makes you taller, sharper and stronger. It has been communicated to you. So in a Markstrat also, this simulation allows you this communication potential. Now, when I am communicating, there are three things that are intrinsic to understanding what is the amount of promotion intelligence that I do. One, what is my frequency of communication? Take an FMCG product, they will be there in the market almost throughout the year. Then take a consumer durables product, they will be there in the market during all festive seasons. And then take a B school, they would be there only during that short admissions interval. So my communication frequency is one parameter. Two, what is the richness of my content and my contextuality of what I am trying to convey? This is driven by the way I am communicating, the text I am communicating. And three, the community which I am addressing. Today, micro-segmentation is possible thanks to social media. So to whom and what is the community to which I am reaching out? So these three things, what is my frequency of reach out? What is my content plus context mix? And who is the community to which I reach out? This is how I broadly define my communication strategy. Thankfully, Markstrat from a simulation perspective blends all these things. Let us try to find out how it does. You can either understand it from the video or look at your own Markstrat simulation screens. You will find in a particular screen a small dabba in which you are supposed to enter your media budget. The media budget is an indication of the frequency in which you reach out to the market, the total money that you pay the Times of India or the ZTV. And the second one, the second smaller dabba which you see below the media budget called the advertisement budget, that is a proxy for the quality of the content and the right timing of the context. So in any real situation, the amount of money which you spend to the Times of India would be much larger than the amount of money that is required for creating the content for Times of India. So you can take these two amounts as that proxies. The media budget in Markstrat is the money which you are spending to create your reach out. And the advertisement budget should be a small fraction of that media budget. What fraction is up to you to choose? It could be 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever percentage, and that is the richness of the content which will help you create the right communication strategy. The third one would be the proration game, which community you are trying to reach out to. As I mentioned in one of my previous tips, for every particular product there is a perfectly aligned product segment. So you understand the nuances of that segment. So your one extreme strategy would be 100% of the money should be appropriated or allocated to that particular segment. So it is 0, 0, 0, 0 for the remaining 4 segments. But you will know in real markets that people who are in nearby segments also tend to buy. It is not that if you're pitching something for the high earners, only the high earners buy, both in the Markstrat market and in real markets. So you can apportion about 80%, 85% for the market which you're aligned to and spread the remaining 10, 15, 20% across other markets in a judicious manner. This is the game of product promotion. Tip number 5, shifting consumer taste. Now let us take one typical market. Take the savers market. At the beginning of the game, you would realize they are the typical so-called lower middle class or middle class in terms of aspirations. They demand quote unquote the cheap product. They want minimalistic convenience. They want minimalistic features, average performance and things like that. But you should remember that this is going to be a growing market. The market size and the market propensity to buy, the price point in which they buy might change, will change over the years. Your reports will tell you how these things are changing. So unless you are capable of being agile in evolving with this market, if you create one product and assume that that particular product at that particular price point will survive to perpetuity, that is a wrong assumption. So you need to adapt. So the game is adapt or die. If you are stuck to a particular market, then you have to keep moving with that particular market and its aspirations across the board in terms of pricing, in terms of design, in terms of your communication strategy, everything. And Markstrat helps you to do most of these things as you do in real markets. The way a Lifebuoy became a Lifebuoy Plus or a Surf became a surf excel, your products also need to evolve and still cater to the same segment. Understanding shifting consumer taste. Tip number 6. Your strategic tips start. The first one is time to market. Let us try to understand the difference between the time to market aspect for Sonite vis-a-vis Vodite. The games are slightly different. In Sonite, you have two time to market variations. One, as I told you, you start with 2 products and you can end up going to 5 products. So, will you do one R&D at a time, or will you do more than one R&D at a time? What are the trade-offs? If you do one R&D at a time, what is a plus? Nothing. That's what you're expected to do. What is a minus? Again, nothing. That is what you're expected to do. But if you're doing 2 R&D at a time, some teams get ambitious. Let me try to do 2 Sonite R&Ds in the same round. What is a plus? If you're lucky, you hit a jackpot and your market share simply goes up. But if you goof it up, you have piles of inventory with you, maybe for one, if you're really bad, for both the new products. So that could be the flip side. Now coming to the Vodite market, the trade-off is, are you going to be a first mover and gain the first mover advantage, or are you going to be a second mover and garner the second mover advantage? What's the first mover advantage? As I told you, it's a blue ocean strategy. You do not know much about what people really want. You do not know much about product design. There is no conjoint analysis data available. You still go blind man's buff. And if you get it right, you garner a huge day one market share and you remain in the market. The flip side, if you get it wrong, you had it. The other advantage, the other approach would be just wait and watch. Some teams do that. Even when they get a chance to do a Vodite R&D, they wouldn't do a Vodite R&D, waiting for others to do the Vodite. And when that product hits the market, if it is a good one, I'll copy it. If it's a bad one, I'll get around it. So the flip side is, if somebody else gets it right, he runs away with the entire market share. These are the nuances of time to market. Tip number 7. A balanced approach. The most critical parameter which drives your success round after round in Markstrat is what we call as the SPI, or the share price index, which is very close to what we call as a market share price in real stock markets. So when you're starting the game, your share price index for all the teams is 1000. And then good teams slowly start building their share price index from there. My senior teams, students who are about 30 plus at 28, have got the resilience built into them to hold on, hang on, understand the risk, mitigate it, and take SPI from 1000 to about 3500, 4000. Some teams have crossed 4000. My slightly younger teams with students having 22, 23, 24 years of experience, are slightly more risk averse. So they play a safer game and they touch about 2000 to 2500 in terms of SPA. This is what has been happening over the past previous years. Things can change. Now, how do I know? How can I increase my SPA? There is no direct way in which I can play directly on SPA. But my SPA is a function, just like your classic regression equation, y is a function of f, x1, x2, x3, x4. Here, what are the various x1, x2, x3 variables? Your market share. Obviously, you need to have a good market share. As I told again on day one, when 6 teams are playing, each team gets computer-driven 16.67 market share. But the moment round number 1 is completed, the slightly better team moves to 18 and the slightly weaker team goes to 15. And as this progresses on, you will find the healthier teams garnering close to 30 to 40% market share and the weaker ones suddenly coming to single digit. The weaker ones suddenly coming to single digit. So market share obviously is a critical parameter. How much margin you are getting is a critical parameter. As I told you, your portfolio width is a critical parameter. How closely aligned your products are to various target segments. How much money are you willing to invest in R&D? How many R&D projects are there in the pipeline? And most important one, what is your cumulative net contribution? Take the case of a Sachin Tendulkar, or as Jeffrey Boycott tells, Sachin Tendulkar. his average run rate, once it has hit something like 58, then even if he scores a series of 30, 40, 30, 40 for about 10 innings, it is still going to remain at 58 because he has played that many number of innings. He has built his net contribution good enough for a Bharat Ratna. Similarly for you, in your initial rounds, if you have built enough capital, if you have built enough solid net contribution, that will hold you in good stead even if there is a bad year. Any year can be a bad year. So you need to have your cumulative net contribution. Then your time to market, your timing to market, your production, your inventory management, your feet on street management or advertisement budgeting, all these things will in small parts drive SPI. What are the beta functions for each of them? Markstrat does not tell us. In real markets, what is the beta function for each of them? We do not know. But then focus on all these variables, the game will eventually be good. The way if you focus on all my 10 tips, you are going to win Markstrat. So take a balanced approach. Tip number 8. As a team, you should be completely and constantly focused on the share margin trade-off. Whenever you're pricing a product or whenever you're repricing a product, remember that there is only a small golden window for you to move. It applies in real markets as well as Markstrat market. Let us take pricing as a total range. Your minimalistic pricing would be just your cost coverage point. If you price at your cost coverage point, which is what the Japanese call as kamikaze pricing, you might get market share, but you completely kill your contribution. In fact, you'll end up getting negative contribution. So slowly start increasing your price till you come to the rim of the golden pricing window. Somewhere between the pricing window is a median price. You do not know it. At no point of time do we really know in real terms what would be the median price. So let us assume it is somewhere right up there. And if you're going slightly below the median price, you get the advantage of eating a bit more into the market, gaining a bit more of market share at the cost of your individual contribution getting compromised. On the other side, if you are gutsy enough, if you have the guts to move above the median price, if you have the confidence to move above the median price, if your product is really good, then market share might get compromised, but your products will still heavily be sold, and when they are getting sold, you're going to get solid margins. Increase price beyond a particular point, and that will be really foolish pricing, and this could happen to you in Bodite because you do not have any pricing cues at all. It happens in real markets, it happens in Markstrat, in the Bodite market, where you'll end up coming up with a completely foolish, very high end price. Well, these are the share margin trade-offs. Tip number 9, have your eye on competition. As in real markets, Markstrat also gives you a plethora of information about competition. It talks about what competitors producing, how much inventory do they have, what's their product portfolio, what are their pricing signaling strategies, are they getting into new products and what is their new product pricing strategy, what is their ad spend, how many people they have on foot on street, what is their product by product market share, and all these things. But there is a small catch. As it happens in real markets, the catch is you do not have access to the current LTM data. What is LTM? Last 12 months data. Now, in real markets also, if I can get your historic reports, if I can get your balance sheets, annual reports, etc. of my competitor companies, I can easily find out what they are doing, what's the margins they are enjoying, what is the cost that they're incurring till last March 31st. I wouldn't know what they are currently doing unless I have insiders planted in my competitor environment. In Markstrat, there is no way you can plant an insider in a competitive environment. So, the most crucial information, the critical uncertainty of what other teams are doing right now and how that will affect your market, your product, your pricing for this particular round, that is an unknown. That is how real markets work. But then the moment the current year is through, you will have all your back-ended data about competition, and unless you do intimate, intrinsic competitor analysis, you are going to go nowhere. So that's a key tip. keep a close eye on competition. Tip number 10. Markstrat is a team game. In school, we would have come across this innocent question: 10 people take a month to build a home. In how many days can one person complete it? The school kid will sort of contemplate for 10 seconds and write 10 months. It's a good answer for school, but the real answer is one person would never be able to complete building a house. Same here in Markstrat. You have to start with a rigorous environmental analysis, understand your consumer survey panels, understand industry benchmarking, then go to product design using semantic scales and conjoint analysis, then look at your target market fitting, look at the multi-dimensional scale with a feel of market forecasting, then get into your resource planning. What is your advertisement budgeting? What is your commercial team? What is your feet on street budgeting? Simultaneously, somebody else has to do a competitor analysis and then look at what are the new R&Ds that you need to develop. Do you go for wait and watch strategy, or you do go for a second mover advantage? All these things cannot be done by one person. So Markstrat is always a team game, and the best team, the team that understands all these 10 tips and implements them right on that relevant point, that team. There is only one winning team. That team will win. Is it you? Well, time will tell. There are videos which, if you simply watch the video, you get a feel of the subject. That is good enough. This is not one such video. You have to follow the tips. You have to understand the tips. I'm specifically talking about kids who are going to get into Markstrat. Close to 100 of them are going to get in March, and another 100 plus are going to get in May. For these students, you need to really watch, listen, take notes, understand, imbibe, internalize, and go with these tips. And yet, unfortunately, there is going to be only one winner. That could be you. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Like, share and comment. Subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.